بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. ثم الصلاة والسلام على العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد حبيب إله العالمين أبا القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أرواحنا لتراب مقدمه الفداء، الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة. ما خاب من تمسك بكم وأمن من لجأ إليكم. يا ليتنا يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قد أفلح المؤمنون الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون والذين هم عن اللغو معرضون. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Illuminate your heart and bless this majlis with a loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Ashab al-Samaha, respected Shaykh, my dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Music and Islam is a discussion that is always lumped in any single Q&A session. All of our wonderful, upright youth are concerned with this as it is extremely relevant in their lives. In addition to the youth, the elderly, in addition to them, the non-Muslim, everyone in one way or the other has an understanding that due to its significant influence in the life of the human being, we wonder to what extent are we allowed to engage with this medium. By simple observation, we notice many people are absolutely engrossed, influenced, taken over by this area. And oftentimes you'll find an array of answers provided that you can see someone tell you that it is categorically prohibited. Music is haram, qat'an, period, nothing else. Singing, al-ghina, music, all of that, there's no room. And then on another hand, you might hear opinions and discussions such as the kind that's haram is the kind that is befitting for illicit gatherings. متناسب مع أهل اللغو والفسوق. If you study that terminology, you'll come to a conclusion that, wait a minute, not all of these are perhaps impermissible. Can I theoretically go to my Mawlana and say to him, Sayyiduna, Shaykhana, can I listen to this rapper? Because I understand that it's not black and white all of a sudden. There are certain categories that if they do not find themselves, and if it's not met, if it cannot be seen and identifiable as befitting for illicit gatherings, which by the way requires its own discussion. What is an illicit gathering? Is it relative? I need to look when the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhum as-salam said that statement into that time period where the gatherings were illicit. What was the nature of that gathering, that merrymaking, that passing of alcohol, that dancing and provocative hedonism that was observed through the degeneracy of lavishness? That type of gathering, if it's befitting for this, then it's impermissible. Yani, if there is a type of music that will not be played in such gatherings as it's not befitting, is it halal all of a sudden? What about the industries? Because the industry is a very, clean industry. Is it a clean industry or not? Look at the top charts of the top singers and rappers and artists. Are these individuals that I would like to become inspired by in my life? طيب, I don't have an issue refusing something that was made for me by someone who was an evil person, but the thing that was made is halal. I'll still refuse it. If today a Satanist comes who is absolutely oppressive, say an IDF soldier, same thing, and they make you a cake. The cake is halal, but will you still eat it? No, because it was made by hands that has the ghadab of Allah on it, the anger of Allah on it. When it comes to food, we know the drill. It's not about the thing, the product, it's about the source. When it comes to music, we don't care. The music, many will excuse, but the halal lyrics is not an issue. But the source is a demonic individual. You might see individuals from the world of pop, of rock, heavy metal, satanic rap, where someone doesn't mind calling himself a rap god. Or someone doesn't mind making brands of attire and clothing and fashion and naming their shoe Israfil, one of the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or someone doesn't mind saying, I'm going to name a song, like Kanye West has, calling himself, I am a god. Someone doesn't mind that he has done so much wrong, but his music, it inspires me. You wouldn't take the product from someone who was a mad individual because you say, I don't care if that product technically meets the parameters of acceptability. The source was evil. Then what about when it comes to your spiritual nourishment? The source is evil, but the product was relevant to your life? These are all questions that concern us. The additional point to this critical discussion, my dear respected brothers and sisters, is that many have overlooked it due to the sensitive nature of bringing up names such as P. Diddy or Kanye or Eminem or Rihanna, with the fact that your children from ages of 11 approximately to around 19 are obsessed with them. And to you are ma'soom, mashallah, but your son's addicted to this. Your daughter's obsessed with this. To come and say these topics should not be found in our majalis. Number one, the member of Imam al-Hussein is not your monopoly. It's Imam Hussein's. And the member of Aba Abdullah is a corrective institution to correct and adjust the illicitness and the fusuq that is happening, that is plaguing the minds of our youth. If you don't talk about this at the majlis, you're going to hear about this in high school? You're going to hear about this at university? That friend that you don't even know their name, they're out with their best interest in mind? The best reformation, corrective institution is the member of Sayyid al-Shuhada. These things are affecting our youths, I have a friend. This is a first-hand example. He complained that one day his son, a teenager, suddenly changed in his life. He started wearing black more. He's a young man. He started putting on eyeliner. Why? And so we had a sit down to speak with him. The sad thing is, there was a lack of parenting, such that now someone else needs to parent the child. Where were you in their life? They come and we notice that he started listening to heavy rock, metal, and rap. Because as a teenager, you're very impressionable. You become easily influenced. And if you're listening to this hours upon hours in the day, you'll begin to embrace that lifestyle. These are the contrary. These are the topics we need to be having and discussing. Because if it's not now, it's going to happen eventually. And I'm not saying it's because we live in the West. Alhamdulillah, we do. Because we have gotten opportunities maybe others haven't gotten. There is no guarantee, even in the Middle East. Coming from Iraq, the music industry, mashallah, has improved. This industry, has it kept in mind your interest or not? There are a few points I would like to examine with this. Let us begin that after a loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Many youth will ask this question, and even those who are no longer considered youth. What's Islam's deal with music? If it makes someone feel good, my doctor will even encourage, hey, so long as you don't do any harm or cause harm upon others, entertain it. It calms you down. It relaxes you. So what's the problem with that? The problem is not in trying to seek comfort and relaxation, although potentially temporary. The problem comes in that we observe that the source material and even the content and lyrics can be extremely problematic. We'll examine the question about what if the lyrics is halal, like they're not introducing or advocating for promiscuity, for drugs, which, by the way, according to Statistica, which gathers the average numbers of data and statistics, over 75% of all music in this world today advocates for either one of three things: money, materialism, objectification, drugs, and haram relationships. That's over 75%. طيب, if you manage to catch the 25% that's not including these, how are we supposed to approach that? We'll get into that in a minute. A hadith from Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen actually addresses this. Imam Ali alayhi salam says that al-ghina'u yurithu al-faqr, that music, haram music, brings about poverty. The irony is, where's the poverty when you gaze upon the musical world? The musicians are rich. The company and the industry, do you know how much the music industry is valued at today? If the music industry was made into a country, it would be the strongest country in the world today. It's valued at an annual rate of over $440 billion. 440, from the downloads to the purchases to the concerts to the memorabilia to the clothing to the merchandise to just buying a song and downloading it and all of these other efforts, from going and meeting your favorite musician and rapper. It's valued at $440 billion. If it was the country, it would be the strongest country today. Over 75% of the material and the lyrics is about either drugs, materialism, money, and haram intimate relationships. Given this, how can we say that, Ya Ali ibn Abi Talib, al-ghina yurithu al-faqr? How is that possible? There's a lot of richness in this. Look at the top singers, the really rich ones, the billionaires. It's not about how many friends and followers you have. It's about when the going gets tough and the tough gets going, who's going to be with you and stand with you? They are famous, but they're some of the saddest people ever. Look at Kanye West. Look at the manic episode that you've seen lately go down with. By the way, when I use these examples, two reactions usually come up. Either Maulana is the coolest man ever, he just mentioned this popular name, or how dare he bring this guy's name up. I like to think the first one is where we're all at with. But some of them, no matter how rich they can be, billionaires are part of the most depressed group of people you will ever see. Faqr, poverty, is not fiscal only, brothers and sisters. If you thought it was fiscal, then you have to recheck. Otherwise, Anthony Bourdain would still be alive today. He had the best of lives anyone could live on a material level, traveling the world, eating free food, seeing the beauties of this life. Famous figure in American culture. You guys know the man. Travel and enjoy the luxuries, committed suicide. If money brought happiness, I know some people like to say, this is an old statement. Money can't buy you happiness. If that's the case, please deposit it into my account. No, it can buy you relative joy, but it's not blissful happiness. It's, I've had a way to solve my rent and I can buy whatever I want. That's not objective happiness. That's the necessities have been checked. Otherwise, Robin Williams, the famous actor, would still be alive today. These mental issues, they're not going to be influenced one way or the other by money. Money is an amplifier, is a magnifier. If you're a serial addict, money will make it easier for you to get more of that resource. It just amplifies what you have. Your current mental and spiritual state, where is it? Bring more money, it'll probably amplify it. Money is not haram. There's a bad mentality that in order to have better iman, you must have what? Humbleness. Humbleness is good, but you have to have fiscal humbleness. A mu'min can't drive something expensive. What is that? Wear good clothes. What is that? That's not true. That's called asceticism. And in Islamic spirituality, it's called zuhud. But zuhud is good. Imam Ali says, لَيْسَ الزُّهْدُ أَنْ لَا تَمْلِكَ شَيْئًا. To be ascetic doesn't mean you don't own anything. You misunderstood. لَيْسَ الزُّهْدُ أَنْ لَا تَمْلِكَ شَيْئًا. إِنَّمَا الزُّهْدُ أَنْ لَا يَمْلِكُكَ شَيْءٍ. Rather, to be ascetic means that nothing owns you. You own what you decide to bring. It shouldn't consume you. You can enjoy the pleasures of life. Why not? Allah says, Al-malu wal-banun zinatul hayatid dunya. That a big family and wealth are among the adornments of life. But back to the concept of that music, singing brings about poverty. It was never about fiscal poverty. Look at, for example, the she was the most famous Irish musicians in the 1990s. She passed away in 2020. Sinead O'Connor. She says, I lived a life of complete chronic depression, yet I was the most famous singer in all of Ireland. She would sell in 1 year 7 million copies of her albums when she really popped off. And she became a global icon, nominated for a Grammy 3 times in a row. She's like, I was so depressed in my life until I had a friend who filled the spiritual void in my life. This friend was a Muslim. Sooner than later, this singer, Sinead O'Connor, embraced Islam, put on the hijab. And this was in 2018. 2 years later, she passes away. When you become a Muslim, your previous sins are what? Wiped. And she says, I was on a journey that I didn't realize. I had all the money, I was not happy. Look up her story. I had all the money, I was not happy. You thought I was flying high in the sky? I felt lonely. It would be better to be homeless, but to have some friends nearby. When Imam Amir al-Mu'minin says that evil music brings about poverty, he's not talking about necessarily and only money or economic poverty. It's you reach this point in life where it's people only like you because you provided them a service. They don't like you for you. They don't like you for who you are. Because then when you're abandoned and depressed, when was the last time someone said, how is your mental health? I've been thinking about you. I know you go through a lot. Can we be there for you? No one asks me about that. It's just, when is the next concert? Hey, that lyrics rang true with me. There is also a concerted effort, brothers and sisters. And this is not to enter a conspiracy rabbit hole. But the signs are all there. Where there is an evil, dark agenda to the music industry. An industry that taps into the psychology of the insan, the human being, and knows that these are the main things humans desire. Money, luxury, and intimate pleasure. Always point and highlight that part of their brain. Make sure the songs talk about that. So they always pinpoint these things. That's why the top musicians are always flashy and blinged out. They will always compete with how much more chains and jewelry they can wear on their neck. And the diamonds and the ice and the teeth and the flashiness. It's literally the pinnacle of, hey, if you're rich, you're worth it. I will reflect it not only in my lyrics, I'm going to reflect it in my person. My 15-year-old friend suddenly becomes obsessed with that. And he doesn't have any of this. He aspires to become like that singer that he looks up to, who in his very songs and lyrics, and you all know these names, are satanic in their essence. These things ought to be highlighted. Otherwise, if not now, then later on it'll be difficult, because it's truly an addiction as well. How many you know, I know you all know, that someone in your life struggles with the addictive nature of the music they're listening to. It's hard. I know Ahlul Bayt and the Quran discouraged it, but it's genuinely very challenging to let go. It's easier when you're younger. It's simpler. It's not impossible when you're older, but there's an addictive property to it. Some efforts have been written, for example, in peer-reviewed studies that showcase there's an attempt to get at the human psyche. If you're familiar with 440 hertz vibration. 440 hertz vibration is what? It's basically at the tune of which you're hearing an audio. There was a study that was done. The music industry all tunes the songs at 440 hertz vibration. In some countries in the world, they've banned 440 hertz. Why? Because a study was done and it displayed, and this is, by the way, not rabbit hole conspiracy, it's just standard neurology, that 440 hertz vibration causes anxiety and agitation in the brain because it's off melodic. The melodies are off, not synchronized, but you can't perceive it. Like some frequencies and vibrations, certain animals can perceive because of the pitch that their ears, subhanAllah, can pick up. The human being can understand a certain frequency. 440 causes anxiety and agitation. And a peer-reviewed study by the well-known medical institute showcased online that 435 reduces the heart rate. 440 increases heart rate and anxiety and agitation. The music industry today fixes all their songs at 440, in a way causing more agitation and stress. Ask someone who listens to music, heavy rap, metal, rock, pop, techno, all of these things. Are you relaxed at the end of it or no? Or do you feel agitated? Do you feel at peace? Do you feel at bliss? They'll tell you, honest to God, hand on heart, no. Some might even say, I come from first-hand examples. And by the way, there is no shame in that. We all are on a journey to Allah, and no one has the right to judge others, as much as I'm talking about those frivolous, provocative singers and rappers, I also pray for their guidance. I also pray for their hidayah. I invite some of these to Islam as well. Just like how we saw a singer who becomes the top on her charts embrace Islam. Wears the hijab and Allah guides them. يَهْدِ اللَّهُ مَن يَشَاءُ. But ultimately there are concerted efforts, brothers and sisters, to win people over for monetary purposes. We notice an interesting hadith that the Prophet of Islam brought forth, to which he says, Al-ghina'u ruqyatu zina wal-'ayadu billah. That music, haram, singing, is what is called ruqyatu. So it's the wasila, the medium to adultery and haram relations. At the time, the Messenger of God, look up the 7th century Arabian Peninsula, the socio status of what people did to enjoy and pass time. They would gather and merrymake and drink alcohol. In such gatherings, this was highlighted as majalis ahl lahu wal fusuq. Ahlul Bayt, when they would be asked, what is the status of music? They would say, the music that is mutanasib. For majalis ahl lahu wal fusuq is haram. Why? Rasulullah says, al-ghina'u, music, haram music, brings about the ease of wanting to have illicit relations. They would say, how? I mean, they're just listening and merrymaking. Today. Look at these dirty, pervy songs that I wish it would just stop with illicit relationships. It's promoting Satanism, for goodness sake. And you know what's so interesting? Forget the lyrics. Forget it. Look at the human who's sharing with you the lyrics. Like I said, would you eat a cake baked by a serial killer? No. No way, I'm not touching that. Yeah, but it's halal. Halal, keep it with you. I know that my soul can get affected. Then what about consuming a product from someone who genuinely Allah is angry with? Why is it easy to say, but the lyrics is halal? Imam al-Mujtaba alayhi salam says, this is the second Imam of Ahl al-Bayt. Ajibtu liman, this is a beautiful hadith. Ajibtu liman yatafakkaru fi ma'kulihi, kayfa la yatafakkaru fi ma'qulihi, fayujannib batnahu ma yu'dhi, wa yud'i sadrahu ma yurdi. Look at the words of the Imams of Ahl al-Bayt. Say, Alhamdulillah, I follow these people. Imam al-Hassan says, I am shocked at the person who always thinks about what they're going to eat. If there's a hair on my food, I'm not touching that. If there's a drop of poison, no way I'll eat that. They always micromanage meticulously their food. Whatever goes in their stomach, they have to think about. How do they not think about what goes into their head? Because the stomach is more important than the head, huh? The head, the brain, your intellect, your consciousness, your subconsciousness, that doesn't need to be nourished? Or nourish it with whatever they feel, because the ear, according to Imam Zain al-Abidin al-Risalat al-Huquq, is the pathway to the heart. Whatever you listen to will go down here. Make sure you give that into the ear, what you're willing to have this in the heart, accept. That's why the hadith says that continuously listening to haram music brings about qaswatul qalb. What's the connection between music and the heart? The path to the heart is only through the music. It's through the ear, through what you listen to. That's the heart. A heart can become hardened if you're constantly feeding it with this material. How do they not think about what they give their ma'qul, their aql? So they prevent their stomach that which hurts them, but they allow their chest to accept whatever receives them. One day, where was this found? This example. One day, Al-Imam Musa al-Kadhim, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh, was walking through the highway and saw of the town and saw that a house that he passed by was bashing loud with music. It was shaking from how much people were merrymaking. The Imam saw, alayhi salam, the servant of the home come outside to discard some trash. The Imam said to this individual, "Can I ask you about the status of the person in the home who's playing so much music? Are they a free man or are they a slave?" The person said, "They're definitely not a slave. They own this home and they have the money and they're bringing dancers and merrymaking and music. They're free, they're not a slave." Imam al-Kadhim said something so powerful. He said, "Of course you're right. Of course they're free. Because if they were a slave to Allah, they wouldn't be disappointing their Lord in this way." The servant goes back inside. He runs into the owner who asks him, "Why were you so late?" The owner goes by the name of Bishr al-Hafi. Bishr asks his servant, "You were late." He says, "I ran into someone so different." "Who?" "I don't know his name, but he just asked me a question." Bishr says, "What did he ask you?" He says, "Whether or not are you a slave or a free man?" He says, "What did you say?" He says, "I said, obviously you're a free man." So what did he say? He says, "Indeed, because if he was a slave to Allah, he wouldn't be disappointing his Lord like this." Bishr was shocked. Sometimes it takes a shock to wake you up. Have you seen how people shock those to wake them up from being in coma at times when they're out, when their heart stops? You might give them a pulse to jolt them back. This happened mentally. It's called an epiphany. Bishr runs outside from how shocked he is at that reminder. That's the other thing. Don't judge. People can change, and sometimes they can change. I wish I could say overnight. They change in the second, but it needs a wake-up call. Bishr runs outside. He forgets to put on his shoes. That's why later he's called Bishr al-Hafi. Bishr, the one who doesn't wear shoes. And he runs to the Imam alayhi salam and he says, "Listen, you woke me up. I ask Allah to forgive me. What you told my servant changed my perspective on life. Can I be among your followers?" Imam said, "On one condition. Let go of this evilness that you are doing. For it does the following three things." This following three things hadith that Imam references is unanimous sunnatan wa Shia. I found it in the Sunni world as well, and I can find it right now in the Shia world. That music does three things. Number one, don't be surprised if the gathering of haram music, a calamity strikes them. A calamity strikes them. Something can happen and all of them are affected negatively. That's number one. Number two, the angels do not come down to them. The angels leave. Any gathering that has haram, reverberating, anything that has that, malaika don't come. And who can take your ajr to the heavens besides the malaika? Number three, and most importantly, your du'as are rejected. He asks, I make du'a. How come Allah's not answering? Earlier he was jamming Jay-Z. I made so much du'a. How come nothing's working? You're the one, Ya Allah says, "Id'uni astajib lakum." Where's my istijabat al-du'a? Yeah, tell that to Rihanna you were just listening to. You think Allah will answer a dua in a house that's not heard the Quran but heard these people more? I doubt the angel will come. Who else but the angel will take this back to Allah? Look, not even at the lyrics. Taban, if the lyrics is haram, it's haram. Forget the tune, the sound. Does it look like it'll be befitting for clubs and illicit? Forget that. Look at the human being. One of them today, Mr. P. Diddy. You heard about the charges? Have you seen the nature of the charges? Go back to 1980s. Underage exploitation, coercion, terminology that I don't even think is befitting to use on this member, in the thousands. That kind of person, if he makes me the best of cake, I wouldn't consume. Then why is it when he makes music, it gives me peace? That person gives you hell, not peace. These type of individuals, if they don't show you their true colors now, it'll come out later. And then they show you a clip where he comes and hugs a bunch of kids earlier. Like, mashallah, he was so sweet with the children earlier, and spewing Satanism left, right, and center. It's okay, it's just his career. Later on, it's like, well, that was awkward. That was awkward. Hugging kids and all of that. And he's the type of person that exploits and takes advantage of children. Well, that was very awkward. If not now, it'll emerge later, brothers and sisters. Why associate and affiliate with that? Some might ask the question, where's the halal music? متطابق أو مناسب إلى مجالس أهل اللهو والفسوق يعني الغناء والموسيقى الغير متطابقة لهذه المجالس حلال مباح أم لا? Says, wait a minute. One criteria to use to determine whether or not you're listening to is haram or halal is, can I imagine this being played in a haram gathering, a club? No, it's too boring for that. It's probably okay. If I can't think that this will be played in a bad gathering where a lot of merrymaking and disobedience of Allah is happening, then there's another thing you should do. Just because it sounds okay from that angle, you have to look at some other things. Like what? Look at the lyrics. We said earlier, over 70% of all lyrics throughout all genres either preach drugs, hedonism, degeneracy, materialism, or haram relationships. Is this the other 25%? Okay, look at the lyrics. What is it encouraging? If the song sounds halal, but the lyrics, one word, has profanity, it's all forbidden. By ijma' consensus of our ulama, it's all prohibited. Because if you think about it, you're feeding your brain and your consciousness this material. Where else does it go besides the heart and the soul? And then you ask, why is my dua not answered? Well, look at the angels. If they were around, then they would have sent your dua up there, sending it upstairs to get answered. But too bad, the malaika won't come where there's that much anger of Allah happening. Lastly, if it doesn't sound like it'll be played in such haram gatherings, if the lyrics is not encouraging something forbidden, or at least has profanity, lastly, take a look at the human being who is making it for you. Just look at them. Are they someone that I would accept consuming food if they were to make? Like, no. Then why will I accept consuming intelligence, intellectuality, material, intellectual material? I will never accept that from them. Then khalas, it's an end story. It's haram from the get-go. And there isn't anything that Allah has prohibited except that it's for your benefit. Islam, by the way, doesn't wake up one day and say, let's make something haram, and puts their hand in a bowl and pull, okay, this is going to be haram now. There isn't anything that's prohibited unless it's for your and my benefit and interest. And there isn't anything that's halal and mustahab except that it's for your benefit and interest, brothers and sisters. Rabbul Alameen, because He loves you and I, He gives us these prohibitions. A good dad and a good mom, when the young baby says, why do you stop me from eating however candy I like? You must be mean to me. Because I prevent you from something doesn't mean I'm mean to you. It means how much I love you, I want to prevent you from getting hurt. That little boy really wants to put their finger in the socket, but I will even slap that hand away. Why did you slap me? You hurt me. I start to cry. Later on, you'll thank me. We have a limited understanding of why things can be prohibited. But if you think about it, if you reflect, it might not be clear now. But when that poor cretin of a human being has over 70 trials of exploitation and abuse, 20 years later, like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense now. That helps me now. There are good alternatives, brothers and sisters. I know some brothers like to go to the gym and blast some heavy because it gives them a pump. There's some good latmiyat out there that can do that for you. I know some that like to listen to soft yet impermissible music to calm themselves down after a long day of work. Wallah, there is nothing that is more calming than the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, than the du'as of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, than the ziyarat for the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. If you're even talking about the melodious tone, I will recommend a few for you. Look up the wonderful reciters that are out there who they struggle and work hard to perfect the maqamat, the melodies of the Quran al-Kareem, that you don't even need to know the word, but you're like, that brought me so much peace. You've seen social experiments where they give non-Muslims earbuds and they're like, tell us what you think about this, and they start crying. That is the most beautiful, peaceful thing I've ever heard. I don't know what it is. And we have it on a daily basis in our lives. Take advantage of that. I know it's a good escape. I know. I live in this life as well. I'm from North America. I see the issues, the struggles. I face them myself as well. I know at times I just want to escape. This helps me. But I will no longer stand and tolerate and as well as endorse anything that's bringing about evil into the lives of others. Because it has harm in it, brothers and sisters. You think this industry cares for you? There's a book by Wilson Bryan Key. Wilson Bryan Key is a doctor from the University of Ottawa, right? Ottawa. He studied in Denver, Colorado, and he has a doctorate in the material of finding subliminal messages. He wrote a book called, and mind you, this book is very powerful and controversial, but it's called Media Sexploitation, where he lists how legacy media brings about perversions and objectifying of women in their content from music and movies and material and so forth. He says the number one industry that has contributed the most to objectifying and materializing the human body is what? Music industry. Look at the dirtiness and the perversions that are found in there. Don't listen to the song. Look at the face of the thing. It looks like he's shaitan. Oh, it's not like he looks like he's shaitan. His name is Little Uzifer. What's his name? What's his name? That's a trick question. If you say the name, I'll be like, how do you know the name so well? Where he actually, in some of the content, says, I have sold my soul to the devil. That's in his rap songs. And Alawi, 13-year-old, is listening to him all day. And the mom and dad are like, don't bring this topic up. Because mashallah, Sirat al-Mustaqim, isn't it? By the way, I've never understood why they even degrade their own names. Like if you're going to call yourself and give yourself a rap name, can you make it something worth your dignity? There's always Lil this, Lil Nas, Lil, the favorite one, Lil Baby. Why Lil? It's just Lil. Lil what? What else is there? Huh? Lil Sandal, Lil whatever. The degrading is quite clear. And the flooding of the subliminal messages are there. And this isn't even to go down rabbit hole conspiracies. That truly elements of godlessness are there. Heedlessness and ghafla can be found. And the encouraging of relinquishing one's principles and values, my dear respected brothers and sisters. That's why Islam categorically banned. And not just banned. It said if you go down this route, you will become lonely in life. You will become poor in life. The listener and the one making the material to be listened. And that's why in Surah Al-Mu'minun we opened up. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Surely the believers have became victorious. الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ مَاذَا خَاشِعُونَ. They became victorious, insha'Allah, all of us, because we had khushu' in our salah, deep reflection, humbleness and humility. But you can't just be a good worshipper and listen to all of these nasty lils here and there. You need to also do what? وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. Laghu, according to ahadith, is that which takes you away from the dhikr of Allah. Al-Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam said, and included in this is haram music. That in order to attain that victory, tuflih insha'Allah, is the combination of two. What am I doing praying and feeding my spiritual body with salah? If right after my salah, I'm pouring down poison into my spiritual body. Yeah, while you're at it, drink this. Drink this sim, wal-'ayadhu billah. Allah says you will become victorious, wallah. And you're a mu'min if you do this. Those are Muslims. But you become a mu'min if you have khushu' in salah and stay away from the toxicity of some of this language. And one individual genuinely manifested this in her life. Wherever she would be going, her sons, both of them would say that our mother's lips would never stop speaking the adhkar, tasbihat, and the Quran of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As-Sayyida al-Tahira, Sayyidatu Nisa al-Alameen, min al-awwalin wal-akhirin, Fatimatu al-Zahra, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha. Lady Zahra alayhi salam brings for us, brothers and sisters, the wonderful example that even if nothing is happening, I will always be doing worship and I will always worship Allah, such that her lips would not be seen shut and not moving, because she was always either doing tasbih, Quran, or any form of dhikr, even when she slept. Even when she slept. As-Sayyida Ayman, Ayman radiyallahu anha, radiyallahu ta'ala anha, she says in the book Madinatul Ilm of Sayyid Hashim al-Bahrani, that I came to the house of Sayyidati wa Mawlati Fatima and I want to help her. I know she's busy. Fatima Zahra, by the way, she was one of the busiest people in all of Medina. Whenever there were issues concerning women and Rasulullah could not attend, he would send Sayyidah Zahra. She would pray over the women who had passed away if the Messenger of God could not do so. She would be an instructor and a teacher. This might sound odd to both men and women. Hadith al-Kisa. What does it begin with? عن جابر عن فاطمة أنها قالت سمعت دخل علي أبي رسول الله. Jabir bin Abdullah says, I heard her say this. Her disciples were many, but they were all upright. And her house responsibilities. Because Sayyidah Zahra would grind the wheat with that stone which was heavy. She would nurse the young Hussein as well. And this was always something that she would do tasbihat. The tasbihat of Sayyidah Zahra, she saw it as a responsibility. It's in her name, tasbih Fatima al-Zahra. She would look at the tasbih as important as nursing Imam al-Hussein. Make sure he's fed. It's as urgent to her as make sure you do tasbih. Because these tasbihat are but your bridge to Jannah, inshaAllah. Ayman says, it was a hot sunny day. And I go to the door, I want to help Sayyidati wa Mawlati Fatima. I know she's busy. And by the way, Ayman was one of the best friends of Sayyidah Zahra. Inshallah, if Allah gives us tawfiq, we can talk more about this lady, Ayman, who, by the way, also, you would be interested to hear, helped raise Rasulullah when he was little. So she's of age. And now when Rasulullah had Lady Zahra and she had children, she wanted to go help her. She knocks on the door, Sayyidah Zahra does not answer. She says, that's odd. Usually she answers me. She knocks, nothing. So she says, I really became concerned. So I decided to peek inside. Sometimes people peek inside other people's homes. If there's an urgency, if you have a good reason, I still don't say do it. But if it's family and you're worried for them, the concern can get you. Ayman says, I peeked. I looked inside. What's going on? It's not like her to not pick up the door. And I see something bizarre. Ayman says, I became shocked at what I saw. I see Lady Zahra asleep, but I see the wheat grinder grinding by itself, but no hand grinding it. And I see the cradle of the baby Hussein rocking, but no hand rocking it. And I hear tasbihat being said, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, but no lips saying it. So I left and I retreated. I ran into Rasulullah and I said, Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. I just came from Lady Zahra's house and I have to tell you, I saw something bizarre. He says, what? She says, I saw the cradle shake, the wheat turn. Tasbihat said, but no one doing it, and Sayyidah Zahra's asleep. Rasulullah says, may Allah make me ransom for her. Fidaha abuha. What a line. Zahra has been working so hard, alayha salam, that even in her sleep, Allah doesn't want her to have her work stop. Allah sent Mikael the angel to turn the wheat grinder. And Allah sent Jibrail the angel to rock the cradle. And Allah sent Israfil the angel to do tasbihat on her behalf while she took a break from how much Allah loves her and how much she loves Allah. She will never be deprived from any of these a'mal, such that the young Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam sees his mother that same night and says to her, his mother, I see you praying and worshipping and doing salat al-layl, but I don't hear you mentioning our house. You're mentioning every other neighbor. Can you mention us in your du'as as well, ummah? To which she says that beautiful line, Bunay al-Hasan al-Jar, thumma al-Dar. Look at the philanthropy of Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam. Look at how much she loved society. Did society love her back? Look at how much Allah loved her. Did they love her back? Look at the enemies of Lady Zahra. They were known to be complete merrymakers who love the world of music. Look at Zahra, who loves the world of the Quran, tasbih and adhkar. Such that Lady Zahra alayhi salam, when the camp and the gangs approach her home to insist on bay'ah and allegiance of the members of the home, she says to them quite clearly, if you do not retreat, I will go to Allah and complain in dua that you came to harass the household of the Prophet. And this is a house, the malaika don't just come down, they never leave us. They said that this will not be the case. O Zahra, you must bring your husband to make sure he gives his allegiance. Such that they return and the order is done that you must now go back and threaten to her, burn her house down. They bring firewood, they bring torches. These are people, Quran is not part of their life. Illicitness, lughu and lahu is part of their lives. And they begin to place firewood in front of the door of Lady Zahra. They don't deny any of this, by the way. They deny the killing of Sayyidah Zahra. They don't deny that they sent an ambush. They don't deny a threat. They don't deny later Sayyidah Zahra becoming angry with them. They just deny that the killing happened from them. In this case, Lady Zahra alayhi salam, Sulaym says to Salman, قال سليم قلت يا سلمان هل دخلوا. Did they really enter ولم يكن استئذان? And they did not ask permission? He says, أي والله وعزة الجبار. As they gather the firewood around the home of Sayyidah Zahra alayha salam, they said to them, إن في الدار فاطمة. Surely in the house is Fatima al-Zahra. Are you really going to continue? The man said, what in? And so what? How is it the case that she is defiant and refuses to allow us to receive their allegiance? They said to them, you're joking. Sayyidah Zahra's in the house. He says, I don't care. This is more important. At that moment, they begin to ignite the wood, and the smoke begins to pile. And Lady Zahra alayhi salam, months pregnant with her newborn, stands in front of the door. She says to them, by Allah, what you are doing will bring about the wrath and the condemnations of Allah on this ummah. They said to her one last final time, if you do not open this and we will receive the allegiance of you and your family, then we will force it through. Sayyidah Zahra notices that they are defiant, alayhi salam, and she begins to insist that, wallah, I will complain to Rasulullah if you continue. They then begin to force themselves into the house of Ali and Fatima. And Sayyidah Zahra alayha salam begins to push back, resisting them until they begin to kick up the door. Lady Zahra alayha salam begins to resist them until they shove the door with all their strength. It opens up towards Lady Zahra, the nail with the door piercing her side. At that moment, Lady Zahra alayhi salam calls out, "Oh Fidda, come and aid me. Oh Father Rasulullah, look at how they treated me." Ya Rasulullah, in that moment you remembered to Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen in the will, "Oh Ali, if they decide to conspire against you, be patient, for they will come and begin backstabbing you all. But if that happens, I don't want any fitna to occur." Imam Ali comes and grabs them all. He says, if it wasn't for the will of Rasulullah, wallah, I would have turned all of this all upside down. They take Imam Ali to the masjid to give allegiance. Sayyidah Zahra stands up despite being hurt and wounded. She gathers Imam Hassan and Hussein, and she goes to bring and trail Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. As she is on her way, Imam Hassan says, the worst part wasn't what just happened in front of our eyes. The worst part was what we were going to with our mother to the masjid. One man saw her still defiant. He gave her a slap on her eye, and we were there witnessing all this pain. Ya Zahra, you in this moment came back to defend your Imam when he was in shackles as such. What about your son, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in Karbala? Where were you on that day, O Fatima? To be with Sayyid al-Shuhada as he lay on the floors in Karbala. Fatimun, لو خلت الحسين مجدلا وقد مات عطشانا بشط فراتي إذا للطمت الخد فاطم عنده وأجريت دمع العين في الوجنايات. إنا لله لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. قال الله في كتابه الكريم: إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم، يا الله 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 يا الله. اللهم بفاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها شاف مرضانا، اقضي حوائجنا، فرج عنا، ارزقنا زيارة الزهراء في الدنيا وشفاعته في الآخرة، وإلى أرواح العلماء والشهداء سيما من أوصانا بالدعاء رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة بعد الصلاة.